And so then it was just trying to be as smart as I could, knowing like, hey, I'm not going to feel safe. Like that's not an option for right now in my life. And so then it was, how can I keep my kids as safe as I can? When I say God was with me, I don't mean like he just solved all my problems.
Right.
Quite the opposite for a lot of the process. My problems got worse. Just sometimes it's hard to trust God that the trials that he's giving you or that someone's choosing that he's allowing to have happen, right? That those are things that are for your good. I knew for me in my healing process, I needed to be able to have my chance after all those years to tell him how it affected me and how much I cared about my kids and how unfair it was for them.
Welcome to Let Me Tell You, a podcast where people share their experiences with trial, heartache, in order to bring comfort, hope, and inspiration to others. This is such an exciting episode for me to get to do. I have Brandon here with me. Brandon has a crazy story. Let's just start there, and we'll get to it. But when we started the podcast, my husband and I had kind of been talking about, it would be really neat to bring him on and for a very specific purpose that we'll get to. So we started looking, see where he's at, all that stuff, realized we live pretty dang close. And that I've actually been in their home at one point teaching the color code, which was just kind of crazy. I always say people come back around in your life, so be a good person so you're not embarrassed or awkward. And so hopefully we've never met, but your wife is incredible. So I can confirm that.
Yeah, a lot of people know that. So.
But the reason that I wanted to have Brandon on, for those who may know the story, a lot of local people will know it more than anyone. He was involved in, I don't even know how to say that, in the Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell case. And I want to give enough story, give enough basis of this so that people can understand where you're coming from, because ultimately we're going to be talking about forgiveness today. So if that's something that I think is a trigger word for some people, I really do. I think forgiveness is a trigger word for people who've been through really horrible things and have been maybe told that they should forgive. And you actually spoke at the sentencing for Lori and offered forgiveness. And I know recently, Charlie Kirk's wife came out and offered forgiveness for the man who killed her husband. And I know when everyone saw that, I'm sure the majority of people were like, what? How do you do that? So going backwards, let's kind of set the scene for where you got into all this, how this affected you. Go ahead.
I could give the dinner table version, since I've had to do that a few times in my life. At this point, it comes up in all kinds of different scenarios. For those who are really interested, I mean, you get on Google and Reddit and whatever else, and I'm sure you can have a nice long.
Well, I will say when this comes out, I will put the link to, because you have a YouTube where you've told this story.
Yeah.
And so if people want to go hear the full story, I will link it there so that they can go hear all the details that you have shared yourself, which I like that it's from you.
Yeah.
That's what I like.
Yeah. So I mean, as far as the story goes, my ex-wife's extended family just got into some weird things. They made some unique choices, and life changed drastically. The side effect of the choices that they made as they started making just what we would all call bad decisions, right? That led to worse decisions, is her son and daughter. They killed them both. This guy that they were making these decisions with killed his wife. And unfortunately, in that process, they also attempted to murder me. They parked in front of my house and shot at me. Man, it's a long story to go through. So the shortest version is, after all of that stuff happened, I tried to stay out of it as much as I could. It did cause me to go through a divorce. It caused a lot of other stuff. And eventually there was no choice but to be involved, right? And
yeah.
And so that's what happened. And the part you don't know when you're going through that is, that's not like, there's a few minutes of action that happened and a few days or hours or weeks of planning that happened for them to make the choice to try to kill me. And then there's years of like going through the process of what we have as a justice system, right?
I remember you saying that in your episode. You said, I thought this would be done in a month. I knew who did it. I told them, so they're going to arrest them. We're going to go to trial in a month. This should be done. And that was so not the case, because that's not how it works.
Yeah. And there was, you know, you don't understand how the process works. Like you see that there's lots of evidence. So it's like really easy, right? But
Yeah.
not all of that evidence is usable. And there's a lot that goes into it. You start to have an appreciation for law enforcement, for you know, the attorneys that are involved in the justice system, you know, the district attorneys and all these different people. Like, you start to really appreciate, man, there is a lot more to this than, you know, me and you think when we watch Law and Order or Dateline or whatever, right? Like, it's like, yeah, slam dunk, ABC. But
Yeah.
that's not, even if it's ABC, that's not how it works, right? Because there's so many variables that they have to consider when they're going through it. And so that was my reality, right? Is I knew all that stuff, but that didn't change that they had to go through that process. And, you know, in my case, it took almost 6 years for us to just go through the point of where it happened till the conclusion of, you know, the charges that were brought against those people.
Yeah.
So.
And going through, you know, and I hope it's okay to share this part, but in going through the divorce, going through all of that, you had 4 children, and they're young children. They were little kids. And I mean, obviously after being shot at, I remember you talking about, I didn't feel safe anywhere. I couldn't just go back to, I think a lot of people think, we'll go back to my parents' house. I'll be safe there. But I'm sure you're thinking, I can't involve other people. I don't want to bring other people in to possibly get hurt.
Initially, you just don't feel safe, you know, and then I remember after not feeling safe, realizing, man, my kids aren't safe. You know what? So it was like a very quick, and then it's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And so then you just start seeking counsel and help, and nobody has great counsel when people tried to kill you and they're still actively wanting to kill you, right? So like, there wasn't a good answer. And you know, like, I tried staying with family for a little bit, and then I realized how much I was endangering all those other people that I cared about, because I knew that they weren't going to stop. Like, there was no, they didn't have any, there was no, hey, we're quitting on this. They still had a desire to kill me. And so then it was just trying to be as smart as I could, knowing like, hey, I'm not going to feel safe. Like, that's not an option for right now in my life. And so then it was, how can I keep my kids as safe as I can, you know? And how can I keep me as far away from the possibility of having to be in a situation where, you know, like what happened that day when they shot at me happens again, because I knew that I didn't want to have to shoot anyone. Like, you know, I understand we have a right to bear arms, but that doesn't mean that you have to really kind of think to yourself, is that something I want to have to do? Mm-hmm. Is it something you would do? I'm glad that I don't have to know that, right? Like, but that was something that I was sure that I didn't want, and I didn't want to make my family or anybody else have to do that either. And so after a little bit, it was, okay, how do I create a situation where that won't occur? And that was the game plan that I went from, was just try to be as far away from anyone as possible and keep my kids without understanding what was going on. So, you know, there was a lot of work that I put into like making them feel like we were on vacation. For instance, that was all of that time while I'm kind of going through my hell, I was trying to make everywhere we went seem fun and seem like, and there's a lot of like little details. You have to get them in online school, which was super difficult to do, you know, and then, I mean, basically you're helping be their teacher. You're helping, like, you know, and you're trying to make every day not remember that they miss their mom all the time, you know, because that's how kids feel.
Yes. Yeah. I remember you saying you basically kind of went on your own with the kids, you know, and kind of traveled around just to get them out of this world. But I'm just feeling the pressure. I can't imagine the pressure of single parent alone. Let's just start there. The pressure of taking care of 4 kids by yourself. Schooling. I mean, props to anyone who homeschools, because I am not that person. I'm not capable of that.
Me either. I found that out. Yes, that is not my sister. I have sisters who are teachers, and my dad was taught high school PE, and like, you know, they've all done that stuff. But that's not. I'm not built to be a teacher.
No.
I can confidently say that's not a good strong suit for me.
Yeah, and it's hard with your own kids. I think that's the other part, is when they're your kids, it's even trickier. But I mean, it's just still so commendable to me that that was your mindset. You were just kind of like, we're going to have to make this work, and it's the only option, I guess. But still, to not just lay down and just be like, well, I don't know what to do.
It was a lot. I mean, my youngest was still in diapers, to give you an idea. So like I was just, making it work.
Yeah.
It was complicated. The hardest parts were like driving long distances. Like if someone has to go to the bathroom, like I got to take 4 kids into a public bathroom somewhere, like stuff like that, and feeling not safe, feeling super scared.
Yeah.
Stop at a gas station, even though I was like, man, there's the odds. Like you try to like remind yourself the odds of like something bad happening are so small. Like you just don't think very. You're just not built the same when you're going through a lot of trauma. Like you're not thinking as logically, and so it is hard.
Yeah. And that's the thing that we kind of skipped over, which we should not have, is what that did to you to be shot at. I mean, very few people can say that they've actually been shot at knowing that that person was intentionally, it wasn't an accident, it was intentional on you. The trauma that that does to you, I can't fathom. Where it, like I said, it wasn't an accident. So someone is trying, actively trying, and they missed. So they're probably still trying, and plotting. And I can't imagine what that does to your mind.
I'm not a scientist, so I can't give you the scientific thing. I can just tell you, it's not a place I hope most people ever go to, right? Like it's just not an enjoyable place to be mentally. And all I can tell you is I leaned into faith because that's what I needed. We're all different. We're all each on our individual path. But for me, man, I was grateful that I had built a relationship with God and that I could pray. I was grateful to have built a pattern in my life where I had made promises to him and I had seen how he answered those promises, so that when I was in, my hell, that's what that was. I had him there, I felt strengthened. I didn't, the stuff was still really hard, but I felt like I believed and I knew that he was answering my prayers and that he was there and I was going to get through it, and I was grateful that I had that I had been brought up in a place where I had been given that, because, and that I had chosen it because it was what I needed during that time.
Yeah. Yeah. There was something that was said on your episode that you did with Colby that I think he used the example of a forced cocoon.
Yeah.
Where sometimes we get in the cocoon ourselves and we're like, I want to change. I'm going to be better. I'm going to grow. But I think more often than not, it's the forced cocoon, which are kind of the trials that we get thrown into that we did not choose. And none of this has been any of your choice. All of this was just kind of put on you.
A lot of people probably have that in their lives, right? Like a lot of people go through things that they had no say in. So I'm not unique in that. Like, and my belief is that we all came down here to grow anyways. Just sometimes it's hard to trust God that the trials that he's giving you or that someone's choosing that he's allowing to have happen, right? That those are things that are for your good. That's a hard thing to trust him in. And I can see how a lot of people might fall away from faith from that. It's something you really examine. And I'm grateful that I didn't, and I'm grateful that it instead strengthened me, because I could see how other people don't.
Yeah.
And for them, I would just remind them that God loves them, and that he's still there if they want to go back.
Yeah.
And it is better with him in your life than it is without him.
For sure. For sure. You use a word in the other one, your podcast as well, called the stimulus.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I love it.
Yeah. I like to use the word stimulus because all of us have different things that happened. And I like that word because it identifies that just because something happened, a stimulus happens, we're just naturally something that happens as we grow up in life is we start believing that because this happened, I have to do this. But that's not necessarily true, which is why I like to use the word stimulus because it can apply to a lot of space. And stimulus takes a lot of the emotion out too. It just makes it, hey, something happened, right? A thing happened. And now I have to choose how I'm going to respond to that thing. And so it gives you, it helps you feel empowered because for me, one thing that helps me go through life is feeling like I have choice, even maybe when there isn't one, right? Yeah. Like my grandma gets cancer. You can't choose for her not to get cancer, but that's a stimulus, and then I can choose how I act to the thing that happened, and that happened in my life. My grandmother got cancer, right? And so like being able to see that I could have a choice even in something I have no choice in,
Mhm.
that makes you feel empowered, and it gives you the ability to maybe feel a little more in control, which maybe helps you make the decision you know you should make, right? The one
Yeah.
that's going to be the best for you, even if it's not what you want.
Yeah. Yeah, because especially when these trials or the stimulus gets put on you, brought to your doorstep, we're all searching for that control. Where because the world might be spinning around us. That's what it feels like. It's just our world just got flipped upside down. It feels chaotic. I don't. Where do I have any kind of control and grounding? And that's why I hope people will use that word. I hope people will take that and no, this is stimulus. Okay, I do have control. I get to choose how I react to this and what next step I take
Yeah.
coming out of this.
Yeah.
I love it. That's so good. Okay, so after you've been doing all this, you've been, the single parent and traveling around and everything, and all of this is still going on. But then ultimately, it was just in July that Lori was sentenced.
Yeah.
And of course, you have to go again. I just watching your testimony, having to be on the stand, having to go through all that. That's nothing anyone wants to go through.
Yeah.
You're so vulnerable. You're probably so like nervous that you're going to say something, not say something wrong, but you're on the stand, and whatever you say can be portrayed or
Yeah.
taken one way or another.
I don't know, like you get projected into a spotlight. And some people I know like really enjoy being in the spotlight, and I understand like maybe there's, because everything has a payoff, and some people like that payoff. It's just not something that I'm comfortable and enjoy, like,
No.
um, I would do anything for my kids. I would do anything for my family, like I would go to any length to keep them safe or to do something that would better them. Um, so I will willingly go into a place like that and be in a spotlight if it's something that I know is good for them. But I don't like doing it. It's not something that like I wake up and, I like think, oh, like let me go through my day and like I would never wake up to be an influencer. That's just
Right.
not my not willingly. Like if it was the only way I could provide for my family, I'll do.
Yeah.
I'll clean garbage cans to provide for my family.
Yeah.
I have no pride on that part, but on the flip side of it, like that's definitely not the career path I would like wake up and be like, oh, I'm excited for this, And so to answer that question, like when you're sitting up there in a force space, I needed to heal. Like we go through, like you need closure is great for healing. And so for me to heal, I needed to go up. I needed to um, tell that judge. I wanted him. I knew it probably didn't matter, right? Like I knew that she already had life sentences. I knew all those things, but I knew for me in my healing process, I needed to be able to have my chance after all those years to tell him how it affected me and how much I cared about my kids and how unfair it was for them that they don't even realize that they've been through. They're not, and I hope I can keep sheltering them until they're old enough that their brains are done forming and they're not, and this isn't creating some negative long-term impacts for them. Like that's been my goal from the beginning, is to like help them avoid all of this as long as possible, because facing it as an adult was really hard, and I don't want them to face it while they're still learning and growing and going through that. I don't like that's not fair. Life's not fair, but that's something if I can help control it, I will, you know? So yeah, it's really, really uncomfortable going through that. And it wasn't something I enjoyed. I just knew it was what I was supposed to do. So I went and did it.
Yeah. I remember watching that, and that's why my husband brought you up to me. I didn't follow the whole case. I knew about it, but I wasn't into the details. I wasn't in the weeds of everything that had happened. And so he actually had to explain who you were to me. I didn't even, know that part of it,
Mm.
which shows how out of touch I was. But he said no. He said he they tried to kill him. I mean, they tried to kill him, and he in the sentencing, when you get to speak, you get to have your statement. He offered her forgiveness, and this is a woman who single-handedly just, I don't want to say destroyed your life because you're still doing well. Um, really shook it up and really twisted it around in a horrible way.
Yeah, her intentions weren't good, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Like, none of them had good intentions. Luckily, we live in a world where that doesn't, just because someone has bad intentions doesn't mean they're going to succeed. And in my case, I'm grateful they didn't, right? But we all make different mistakes in life, and this life's about learning to get better and improve, right? And for me, hanging on to my, I I don't think we should hate anyone, right? But it's okay to hate someone's sins, to hate something that someone did that's like to me, there's beauty in the fact that there's justice, and justice allows for hatred of an act that's a sin or something that's against God, right? Like there can be that, you can have that enmity or that hatred of that thing without having hatred of a person. And so like, but hanging on to that hatred of those acts, I think of it like just carrying around a bag full of rocks on your back that you're walking around with, and that's how, while you're hanging on to it, and sometimes you put the rocks back in, like sometimes you take them out, you say, I forgive you, I'm moving on, and then go a week down the road, and you find you're angry at something, and you go pick it back up and put it back in and start carrying it around again and saying how much you're angry about it. But for me, I really needed to be able to let all of that go, or try to get as much of it out of my pack as I could, because it leaves more room to love my kids. It leaves more room to be a good husband or a good brother or a good son. And I'm really blessed in my life with a lot of great people. Mm-hmm. And if I'm busy spending my thoughts and my energy and my time in that space with all that anger, and I'm carrying it around, there's a payoff. There's something you're losing. And so for me, that was why when I encourage people to forgive, it's from a space of, it's helped me, like that's been something that's been good for me. And when we find things that are good in this world, it's good to share them.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the idea that you kind of shared of, if you're spending your time here in hatred, in, not forgiving, holding on to it, you're taking away from something else in your life. It's not like everything just stands still. It's like, no, you're taking away time, energy that could be spent in a positive area in your life. And it really comes down to a choice. Do you want to stay here and focus on the anger and the hatred, or do you want to move forward? What happened. And that's one thing. We're definitely aligned on the forgiveness aspect, because what happened. We're not going to go back, and no matter how mad we are, it's not going to change the past.
Yeah, I agree. No one can disagree with that. You can't change the past. Right. It's impossible.
Yeah.
So it's only how do we handle the stimulus after the stimulus happened. That's the only control we have, right? But in that, we do have full control. And the more we learn that, the better you'll feel about your ability to move forward in life, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And ultimately, whatever's going to happen to them, judgment-wise, and this comes down to what everyone believes differently, but, obviously we believe the same ideas, the same thing. What's going to happen in her case, for Lori, is going to happen either way, whether you forgive her or not.
Yeah.
That's not going to change. And if you hold on to the hatred, it's not like it's going to be a worse punishment for her, because look how mad I am.
Yeah. Yeah. Being a Christian, Christ is the judge, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and so it's not my job. If my job is to work on my forgiveness and continue to ask him to forgive me and try to become more like he asked me to be. Mm-hmm. And then to trust his atonement to do that work for me, and let it do that work. And in that process, he doesn't say, continue to hold on to and judge these other people. It's quite the opposite, right? He encourages us to let him be the judge, and within reason, right? Like, I would never, if someone's going through something where they're not safe, then like you continue to use good judgment, right? Like there's a difference between Lori being locked away for the rest of her life in prison and me choosing to let that go so that I can have more freedom. And a good example is like, until that was there, I'm not going to go out there and actively encourage her being let free. In fact, I didn't, right? Like there's accountability and forgiveness, and they can both exist in the same space.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about people who, because I feel like more often, I always thought it was we should forgive. I thought across the world, religions, everything, I thought we were just, you need to forgive from a psychological standpoint. It was, you need to forgive. It has nothing to do with the other person. Forgiveness is for us. And I thought we were all on the same page. And then more recently, being on social media, watching in that world, I spent a lot of time with clients who have been through abusive situations and abusive relationships and things like that. I will hear even experts saying, stop telling them that they need to forgive their abuser. And it kind of catches me. And I know this is I think people get their feathers ruffled until I can explain just a little bit. They think that they should walk over to their abuser and say, I forgive you, when that's not really what it is. Again, forgiveness is for us. And I think that what I've tried to tell people when they really struggle with that is, I think God is a really helpful component in here. And the Savior is a really helpful component where if you can't offer that forgiveness to the person that hurt you, give it to him.
Yeah, and if you don't have faith in God, then think of it like give it to the judge.
Yeah.
To continue to carry it yourself. I think, and to be clear, forgiveness, as I said, I think accountability has to be held.
Right.
Other people's safety is of the paramount. When someone does something bad, we have to have a society that has a way to do it. But forgiveness is about me giving away the control of the thing because I was the one wronged. And while I'm holding on to that and saying, no, I want it only for me, I'm stuck with the consequences of the action continuing to be in my life and affect me. And when you give that away, if you don't believe in God, to the judge or to the system or to whatever that is, what you're doing is you're giving yourself freedom from having to be the only person who decides everything about it because it happened to you and you want justice, right? Oh. You're giving yourself space to where now it's not just yours. You don't have to do it all by yourself, because that's how you feel. When you're holding on to that by yourself, it's like, I'm the only one who cares about me and I'm going to have to do it all myself. It's a lot for anyone to hold on to, especially if you've been through something really bad, For us, I love that I have God and my Savior that I can just give that to. And I can say, hey, this wasn't fair. It's not right, but I can choose to give this to you. And that doesn't mean that I can separate the person from the action. Yeah. Right. And I like to define that too, because I can recognize that any person can turn down a path where they can become something that's, very different than even what you knew them as at different points in your life. It helps you not have to throw away entire memories, right? Because I have this was family. This was 10 years of my life, all of the birth and growing of my children. And you don't want to have to throw all that away because it's tainted by these actions. And so the way that you can move forward is you can separate those. You can say, look, I can forgive. I can give this to God and let him and trust him to give me justice one day, whatever that is. And I can still move forward now, free of having to feel like it was all mine and I was the only one who could do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like that. I can honestly say this podcast is not like a necessarily religious podcast, but it's been funny because most episodes turn that way because so many people having gone through whatever they've gone through, that's where they turned. That's where they found strength. That's where they found comfort, which I'm happy. I'm happy for that, to be the case, because everyone can have that. It doesn't, it doesn't matter how you get there, how you find that. It's always there. It's like you said, you can always come back. It will always be there for you. But I think that so many people having gone through such hard things sometimes are left with no justice.
Yeah.
And sometimes are left with, but it wasn't fair. It wasn't right. And it wasn't fair. So how do I make sense of it? And I really personally don't know how they do that without God. I think maybe this is my own judgment, but I feel like you can only get so far when you're trying to carry it yourself and you're trying to fix it yourself.
Yeah.
Because we're human.
Yeah. I think me and you found that that's our easiest solution. It works really well for us, right? But if you can't find that, then find a therapist or find somebody that who is willing to share on that burden with you and start there, right?
Yeah.
And then, I understand that as the realistic thing is we have an imperfect world we live in. And so we're lucky to live in a society where we get more justice than maybe other places. But yeah, like there's lots of things that will never receive justice, you
Yeah.
know? And as a person trying to deal with that, I, all I can tell you is I'm not an expert. I can't go tell you even what the science says, but what I can tell you is my experiences. And my experiences are that I feel much better as a person letting that stuff go versus carrying it. And I've done both of those things. So, um, I would encourage people to find what works for them. But man, like, you know, one of the things I do is I invite people, you know, I invite them to try things because if they work for me, maybe it'll help them. And that's the space I would come from when I say, look, I would invite anyone to like start with God and like try giving it to him, see if he's real, like try to build a relationship with him, look for a way you find him, you know,
Yeah.
um, and find, at least for me, I found so much peace and growth. And in the long run, I found a whole new, like you pointed out when you were talking earlier, like I found I now I have a new, different family than what I had before, but it's beautiful. God's plan was better than I could have imagined. And it's just different, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And now I just trust him that much more because what he gave me was beautiful. And man, it took a long time to get to that point. It wasn't like it was just like a quick thing. There was a lot of pain and a lot of growth, and then there's continues to be pain and growth that you go through. So I guess that would be my response is like, if you, I don't know how to do this without faith, but if you can't, then find that source, because I don't claim to know what's best for everybody. It works for me though, and that's, if I'd invite you to try it. Like if you're not sure, like try praying. Like it worked.
Yeah. And in talking about, I was listening to your podcast, and you talked about how come I'm trying to do everything right and it's just getting worse. Like this just keeps getting worse. And that's another thing that I think people struggle with, especially when they start to really try to do everything right. That's a lot of times when the hard comes on. But then sometimes it's just natural. We live in a world.
Yeah.
People get to have their agency. They get to use it however they want to, unfortunately. And just because you're doing the right things doesn't mean you're safe, doesn't mean you are immune to any bad things happening.
It's like little things that were kind of answers for me a lot. And that, like, as you pointed out, wasn't, when I say God was with me, I don't mean like he just solved all my problems. Like
Right.
quite the opposite for a lot of the process. That my problems got worse and worse. Like every time I thought I was, you know, finally through it, like things got worse. And so like that wasn't how I saw God in my life, you know. I saw it just as tender mercies. Like I just saw, and it was from a practice of having seen him in my life, but I saw the little things that reminded me that he knew me. I would get texts from people that I went to church with telling me that they had knelt and prayed while I was in, you know, the middle of nowhere by myself. And I hadn't told them anything about really what was going on. I would get messages from people who knew me, but I couldn't tell everything anymore. Just in those moments. And then there was just answers to prayer on little things, you know, like with my kids, and those are the things that you have to look. If you're not looking, you're not going to see them. But those were the tender mercies that reminded me and helped me to know that God knew me.
Yeah.
I was just one person in this world of billions of people, but man, he knew me and he was there. And while he wasn't taking away all of the hard things that I was going through, I knew that he was there. And so when I got to the other side of it, it felt relieving,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I think, and for anyone who hasn't heard the term tender mercies, it's in my brain, I think of it as this is where God just jumps in and gives us a freebie. He gives us just a little, here you go. I'm going to make this, number one, I'm going to help you with this. I'm going to make this slightly easier or give you a little more support. So much of tender mercies are because he wants you to know, he wants you to see him. He wants you to know he's there. And I actually use that in my coaching. I will encourage my clients to look for tender mercies. Spend a week, spend a day. At the end of the day, look for the tender mercies that you saw where it was like, oh, wow, I was in a hurry and had to run into Walgreens really fast or the store, and there was a parking spot right up front. Like I could get in and out. There was no one in the store. It was crazy. It's never like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you can choose, because some people will be like, well, that's coincidence. you can choose to see it as a tender mercy.
Yeah. You can choose to see it as God's hand in your life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that just feels better. I'm sorry, that just feels better.
Yeah.
To know that there is, I mean, they will talk about it in AA and places like that. You have to have some sort of a higher power to be able to move forward, because you have to believe there's something bigger than you, that you are not in control of everything, because that's daunting. You have to know that there's something there to help you to
Yeah.
get through.
I think it's a happier life, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's more fulfilling. I understand maybe some people just can't get themselves there, but um, I enjoy life more that way. It's
Yeah.
more fulfilling, and it's what I'm going to teach my kids. It's what I'm going to share with the world, because, man, it feels so much better. And maybe that's a reason. Maybe that's your answer, that God does love you and He is real. Like,
Yeah.
the fact that the science even tells you that, hey, this is better for you.
Yeah.
You know, maybe if you can't find any other faith, find your faith in that and start there, right?
Yeah.
Like, science says faith is better than no faith.
Yes.
In our lives, we live longer, we have better lives.
Yeah. So depression rates go down. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's real. That's science. There's the science we do know. Another part of the forgiveness that I think people really, really struggle with, and I can understand, is when the person that hurt you is not looking for forgiveness, is not taking accountability, is not saying they did anything wrong, or is not admitting they were part of it, whatever that is. But what do you tell people when they are in that place? Like, that person's not looking for forgiveness.
Yeah, I think it's a two-part thing. Like, one, I encourage you to stand by the truth. You know, like you don't have to say that if you know something's true, it's true. Like, you don't have to let go of the truth. You don't have to let go of your demand for accountability and justice. Forgiveness does not require that, right? Like, there's a difference there. But on the same token, that doesn't mean that you have to hold on to the hatred of the thing that they did instead of giving it away, right? And that's to me, that's the difference. Like, yeah, like, and when I say, it's a process, because, I mean, none of the people who have who plotted this and planned this for me none of them have ever said I'm sorry, nor will they, nor do I expect that any of them will. I mean, one of them's dead, one's on death row, one's in prison for life, and then the other people who were involved, haven't admitted anything,
Right.
So I recognize truly that, like, that's a reality, and that doesn't mean you can still demand justice with all those people, but letting go of that, it's just for you. It's like what I've talked about this whole time, right? That letting go of the thing that they did, that's about you. It's not about them, right? Like, there's a difference there. You almost want to ask yourself, well, what do I gain by not letting go of the thing? Like, what am I gaining? And when I ask myself that, the gains that I see are more stress, more pain, more anger. Because when I do go pick it back up, because, like, maybe something else happens with those people and then you feel angry at them again.
Yeah.
And then you want to bring back up it's like what we do with anything. Like, you want to bring back up all this old stuff and like regurgitate it back out. I'm like an attack at it. But, like, all that comes from that, like my payoffs, like, I think about payoffs, right? Like, what are the payoffs of hanging on to how terrible, like, this thing is? And when I dwell in the space of all of the things that they did, payoffs are just those things I was saying: anger, frustration, heartache. They're all things that I don't want constantly in my life, and they have a purpose. They keep us safe. They, like, I know why God lets those things exist. They create change. They're there, and they can serve their purpose. I'm not even going to say necessarily they're good, but they are needed.
Yeah.
And but they aren't required to keep in your life.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference for me, is like, what kind of a life do you want to have? Because you can have all that stuff in your life. You can be justified in it. I mean, you don't lack justice in it because it did happen to you. But what you do miss out on is you're going to keep all of those payoffs in your life instead of the payoffs that come when you don't. When you let that go and you give it to God or somewhere else, you give it away, then now there's this empty space. I'm not saying that you're necessarily going to get the good payoffs, but at least you have a chance.
Yeah.
Right? Because while you're not, then you know the payoff's not going to change. It's not like you're going to wake up one day and be like, yeah, I hate that this person did this terrible thing to me, and, like, all of a sudden be like, oh, actually, I'm really happy. Like,
right.
That never comes.
No.
I can promise you that for me, that day is never going to come.
Yeah.
I'm never going to wake up and think, yeah, so glad. Like, that we know that that's just how it is. But what does happen is, if I'm not focused on that, and if I've let that go and put that out of my life and I've given it to God. You might wake up and be like, man, my son's got a soccer game. And while I'm not excited to go sit and get bit by mosquitoes, I am excited to see the joy on his face if he succeeds at like getting a little bit incrementally better and he does something really well, right? Like,
Yeah.
So like there's room for that. And then there's room to go to a ballet recital or a dance or whatever it is, right? Whatever your kids get into or whatever other thing you choose to do with your, maybe there's room to watch a Netflix show and like laugh, you know, whatever it is, that's the space you're creating when you let go of that instead of spending that time getting stuck back in there and delving into it. And that's, to me, that's what depression looks like, right? It's like this, just diving back over and over and feeling overwhelmed and like you're never going to get past it. And for me, the trick to getting past, because I felt that for a while I was in that, the trick to getting past it was just letting it go and giving it away.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't like instant, but it started letting me have options. And then when I created good patterns, new stuff came in my life. And I like that stuff a lot better than being in what I was in.
Our happiness will depend on our focus. And you have every right to sit and focus on everything that happened. And I can tell you where you're going to be. I can tell you how you're going to feel. It's not going to be good. It's going to be heavy. It's going to be dark. Or you can choose to focus on that's in the past and we're going to move forward. And I'm going to focus on the people who are here, who love me, who deserve me, you know, and deserve my energy and who I deserve. I deserve their love and their energy. And so I'm going to put my focus here.
Yeah.
And one thing it's funny because in my brain, I've always struggled with, you know, when people say like, just move on and just let it go. Just let it go like it never happened. In my brain, that's what I hear is, so I'm just supposed to pretend it never happened. And I could never make my brain understand that until I heard the phrase, leave it alone. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, I like that. Because that means it happened. That means there's something there. Leave it alone. Leave it there. Don't go back and stoke the fire. Don't go back and dredge it all up again. You know, it's not going to help you move forward. It's always going to be there.
Yeah.
It happened. It's real. But it doesn't bring you any joy. It doesn't bring you any purpose to stay there. None of us are meant to stay in the trial, or at the beginning of the stimulus. None of us are meant to stay there.
Yeah.
We're supposed to, okay, how do I go? Where do I go from here? Kind of like choose your own adventure. Where do I go from here?
Yep.
How do I let this impact me? And what do I take from it? I had one of my girls on Sunday best thought, because people really struggle with everything happens for a reason. Maybe everything doesn't happen for a reason, but God can make reason of everything that happens. He can put a purpose to anything. He can take what other people use their agency to do to hurt us, and he can give us a purpose to move forward with it.
Help us to grow through it.
Yeah. And we've talked about that a lot on this podcast. That's part of the purpose that I like to have people come on, is use what you've been through to bring some sort of comfort, bring some sort of inspiration or help to somebody else out there. And I guarantee there are people who cannot argue with you about forgiveness.
Yeah.
You are not one to be argued with after everything that you've gone through, to be able to say, no, I could forgive, because it had everything to do with me.
Yeah.
You know, people can't argue.
And I like give it away, right? You like to leave it alone. And
give it away.
It's just give it away. Like, look, you can keep it or you can give it away. That's your choice, right?
I like that too.
Yeah. And if you give it away, then we only have so much space. So what's going to sit in my garage? Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. Okay. So we have a new one. So we have leave it alone. We have give it away, because some people need the action. Some people need to do something. Mm-hmm. And if it's give it away, okay, I can do that. That's so good. I'm so happy that you were willing to come on here and talk and share for those out there who can look at someone who's gone through something that was sensationalized. It was very large and bigger than you and bigger than anything that you wanted to be a part of. I can confirm that he does not do social media. I have communicated much, honestly, all through his beautiful wife, who I'm very grateful for her. This is not your world. This is not what
I don't even have Facebook on my phone. I turned it on. I was like running some ads for one of my companies, and so I had it on one of my other phones, but I've gotten a new phone since then, so it's once again not on my phone. It's not like I'm super like anti it so much as it's just not something, it doesn't fit into my day-to-day life of like when I wake up and I want to accomplish things.
Yeah.
I'm not attracted to go look at the social media, and I also feel it feels like a chore to not because I don't love people.
Right.
It just feels like a chore to participate in it.
Yeah.
For me, I guess is probably the best way to explain it.
Yeah.
And so, I participate inside of like some group me's with my family and things like that. But like outside of that, I mostly just spend my time with the people that I love, and then, try to plan ways to make sure I get with the other people that I love, over time. So,
yeah. And if anyone wants, like I said, I'm going to link to your podcast, your YouTube podcast, so that they can hear everything. But I mean, you can Google any of the stuff. I went and watched the sentencing. I went and watched your impact statement. Yeah. I wanted to hear exactly what you said and how that went for you. And so I would encourage people to go do it. If you want to see goodness come out of a horrible situation, I would encourage people to go do that, because that's what this is. This is goodness coming out of a horrible situation. For my final question, if there was anyone really facing, and we've kind of talked about this, but if you were face to face with someone who's just told you everything they've gone through, and it's not fair, they did not ask for any of it, and they're at the beginning, and they're asking you, what do I do? How do I do this? What's my first step? What do I do? Yeah. What would you encourage that person to do?
Depending on what they share, first thing I would encourage them is, if there's something that has legal repercussions, like talk to the authorities. Mm-hmm. Make sure you share all of that information. It needs to be done. Justice has to be served. If you really want things to be better, like, we have to hold people accountable. So that's the first thing I would say, is like, if that stuff occurs, like, is it uncomfortable? Yes. Is it possible that it won't get done right? Correct. Yeah. But if you want to be free of it, you got to use the systems we have. And one of those things is you got to report because you may not be the only victim. You may not be the only situation. You just don't know what else. Like, I had no idea that all the other things, when it was happening to me, I knew some of the things, but I didn't know all the things that were happening. They killed lots of people, not just trying to kill me. Yeah. Right. And nobody knew the extensiveness of it. And so you have to do that. You have to go report things. So that's the first thing I would encourage everyone, is like, if it involves that, do that. Besides that, I think I would just say, like, what I would encourage, like, what I found for me and what I would invite anyone to do is, if I got into your life, I have found more peace studying the words of Christ in my life than I have found with anything else. And it started as a teenager who was lost and troubled, and it's continued as a man who was lost and troubled as a dad, as a brother, as a son. Lots of things have happened throughout my life that have challenged that faith. But I can confidently say that I've always found God as I've looked for him, as I've put in the effort. And you have to put in effort. It's not just, you can't just say a quick prayer and then, like, everything just, I mean, this is the real world, and that's how it is. And I would encourage you to go find that, because it's what worked for me. I would just say, go build that faith. And I'm not going to tell you which faith to choose. There's lots of choices. Go out and look. I found the one that works for me, and I love it. Yeah. And if anybody ever wants, I'm hard to reach, but I'm happy to share.
I can get you in touch. We'll figure it out.
From that standpoint, I would say that, like, and our church has missionaries all over the world that are who are out actively looking for opportunities to help people in that path with God. Yeah. So they're there, and I can promise you that they carry answers. Yeah. And that's what I found for me. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate it. I know this is not your comfort zone, so I'm immensely grateful. So thank you.